IBM Planning Analytics has many applications across industries. In this presentation, we'll be looking specifically at workforce planning in both the strategic and tactical context. First, let's look at our high-level methodology. Similar to many approaches, these steps are meant to be iterative. It should all start with understanding the organization and its environment. This includes defining the core elements of the strategy that will impact the workforce, setting clear goals based on the maturity of the strategic workforce planning, and identifying data and foundations required for effective planning. The next step is to establish a current workforce profile, including the size, shape, and distribution of skills and capabilities. Segmentation can be used to understand the criticality of roles and skills to the strategy. Step 3. A driver-based model can then be designed and built to include implications of strategy for the workforce with respect to workforce costs, organizational design, and productivity and organizational effectiveness. Then on to gap analysis between the future workforce model and the internal scan. Understanding the impact on the workforce dimensions and costs is crucial. Step 5. This is where we design and build lever action plans to close the gaps. We build capability across HR and the business to execute the plans. Finally, step 6. We build multiple workforce plan scenarios with different sensitivities of strategy drivers. These future models can be used to analyze the impact from major external factors. Today, we'll just look at some of these approaches and how IBM Planning Analytics with Watson supports them. Depending on industry, payroll costs are typically somewhere between 40 and 80% of revenue. So let's look at the strategic planning model first, which enables you to set goals and objectives and provide long-range visibility of the impacts. These could range from complete digital transformation to simply filling skill gaps. It's important to be able to apply combination of different factors over time. This model expresses these in terms of drivers and levers. Strategic drivers could be target growth or the next external market factor. A strategic lever could be introducing automation reskilling, redeployment of resources, and so on. Here, we'll focus on just a couple of key metrics: workforce cost expressed as a percentage of revenue, population of workforce, both internal and external, broken down by job role and organization structure, and skill proficiency. The whole process needs to be iterative. This includes the strategies being linked and translated to operational objectives and assumptions for the short-term plan, which we'll look at later. Let's start with strategic planning. The whole layout and functionality can be customized to your needs. Users can also self-serve, but for now we'll stick with what has been set out for us. We're now looking at high-level summary of revenue as well as the impact on costs of various drivers and levers. Multiple scenarios are supported with visibility over your chosen time horizon. We have simulation dashboards for both drivers and levers. The selections made automatically drive the calculations. For example, if a driver was to do with average tenure by job role, and it was essential to retain going forward, then applicable costs would be applied from that point in time. This could include both recruitment costs and an uplift of the current payroll rate. Drivers and levers can be selected either wholesale or individually and have independent windows of time that they apply to. The impact and breakdown of these drivers is then instantly calculated and visualized. Here on the lever simulation, let's go live with the automation and AI initiatives from period 4. I also want to see the impact of rebalancing our workforce for later than that year. The overall impact can then be seen back on the summary. Here, we have an example of base assumptions used within the business logic. This could be updated directly from source systems. Notice on the left, you can also model attributes. For example, if you have classifications for each job role, this could then be used within skill gap analysis and talent acquisition planning. We have specific assumptions that are used to calculate these impacts. For example, we saw earlier that introducing automation ultimately reduced our workforce costs. By contrast, rebalancing the workforce mix resulted in an uplifting of costs. Here, we can capture commentary to support the scenario modeling and explain any variances. Over to the Skills Matrix tab. This is another significant area. Part of any strategizing requires you to know your workforce. Many organizations periodically assess and analyze this area. Since we're here, let's update our initiatives. Let's enter skill profiling to be completed by the 31st of July. Here you can see the proficiency rating by capability and the ability to capture interest or motivation levels by employee. Again, this data could be imported from another source, or you could use a solutions workflow assisted data collection. All of this information is tracked at the employee in the job role level over time to identify skill gaps and drive calculation impacts for the simulations. While the previous tab focused on capturing the skills at the individual employee level and consolidate into the business unit, this workforce profiling analysis enables us to look at this from both the population and the cost perspective, as well as understanding the before and after for each business lever that we have modeled. This insight is further broken down by job role and organizational structure. We've also chosen to highlight if costs or headcount are reduced as a result of a particular lever. For example, if we look at automation and AI and organization restructure. As mentioned earlier, the strategies are linked and translated to operational objectives and assumptions for the short-term plan. Examples could be headcount increase or decrease by role and entity, targets for specific skill sets and talent acquisition, staff retention, cross-skilling, remuneration, and so on. Let's now look at the operational plan. We can see the high-level initiatives. The other guidelines, targets, and assumptions can be specific to the business unit or line manager. We also have a high-level summary of workforce population by region with the ability to drill for more detail. Looking at Georgia, for example, there is a relatively low headcount at the start of the year, whereas by the end of the year, we see both a significant increase in population and total payroll costs. This could be reflecting redeployment, recruitment drives, and so on. For the operational planning, the focus will be on the actual business unit and departments as opposed to regions and at the employee and headcount level. We look at how an HR planner or line of business can manage their employee headcount compensation and benefit costs to align individual departmental needs with the overall organizational objectives. Let's start off with workflow capability. You can easily distribute planning templates and collect using your own defined approval hierarchy. Here, you can see plans that aren't started, work in progress, and ready for further approval. This enables faster iterations to gain consensus while also being transparent. We need to focus on new employees and existing employees separately, as different levels of information is known about both groups. With existing employees, here is a combination of summary information and inputs allowing you to view your current employees and their associated costs. If we change the action of an individual employee, automatic validation kicks in to prompt additional inputs that are required. This is a classic driver-based approach with controlled inputs that drive calculations using the underlying assumptions. The model links employee performance to merit increases and bonuses, but can be overlaid with manual input in the highlighted cells. As we saw during the pandemic, furlough planning was a necessary task, and with Planning Analytics with Watson, it is easily accommodated. Here, the business manager can plan the workforce in accordance with the government furlough scheme and have the model calculate all the necessary implications. We can see the business unit's total cost, also by individual, and now let's reflect an individual under the government scheme from April through to October. Moving on to new headcount. This is where you can plan for new hires. There are controlled predefined pick lists, and for example, the combination of location and position determine the base salary. The start date will determine the point at which costs are actually incurred. All of the previous data, along with underlying assumptions, are brought together in a summary. This allows you to view the total HR costs for your business unit. You can see new employees, existing employees, and total costs. You can see targets versus plan and variances at any level. For example, salaries are lower than targeted, which is indicated as a positive, although we haven't reached our headcount plan. So really, that's driving the variance. Let's now look at the assumptions underpinning this model. Here, you control the various drivers using the application. Grade level and performance drives the bonus percentage, where merit increases are driven by midpoint and the employee performance. Looking at mid-salary and differential, this allows you to control standard salaries and the multiplier to adjust for location. Grade level by position allows you to control the grade level for a specific position. We have corporate guidelines. We can monitor your decisions, look at the variances, provide commentary, and even set the targets. Let's have a look at exploring and interacting with the data with a self-service approach. If you know where the data is, you can navigate to it and drag it into the canvas to work with. It's very intuitive to filter and orient the data. I want to see both the numbers and the visualization. In summary, we've looked at an example of how IBM Planning Analytics with Watson can enable organizations to easily manage across the enterprise employee headcount compensation and benefit costs so that the business unit decisions can be aligned with the corporate objectives. More and more of our customers are expanding their use cases for IBM Planning Analytics due to its high performance, scalability, and versatility. Thank you for joining me on this journey through IBM Planning Analytics with Watson and workforce planning.